Recently I had an encounter with a rather large bull moose, but before I tell that story I should just let you know that my first experience moose hunting was in 1972, in the fall of 72. A friend of mine couldn't go along with me, but he said he would lend me his gun, and he took me in a bush behind Worthington. Anyways, he just pointed me in the right direction. I was 22 years old. Never hunted anything bigger than partridge or rabbits before that. Anyways, he taught me how to call for a bull, and I did that for an hour, walking deeper into the bush all the time. Actually, to my surprise, a bull moose started answering me, and so I kept calling and walking closer. I walked down the hill into this swamp. Like within 20 feet, this big bull moose just turned around the corner and looked me straight in the eye. And we stood there for a minute looking at each other, this huge rock. I'd never seen a bull moose that close. I pulled the gun up and fired a shot, and immediately he went down. And before I knew it, he was back up again. All I saw his rear end, his tail lights going through the bush. And I walked closer, looked for blood, couldn't find anything. After that, I hunted regularly every fall from 1981 to 1994, so 15 years in a row. We would spend hours walking in the bush in the fall, getting soaked, freezing, making a fire, warming up, and going again. I'm just giving you all that history just to show you that looking for moose and trying to find them and trying to get close to them has been a part of my life for many years. Anyways, now at 65 years old, living out in the Nepawasi, I go for a walk pretty well every afternoon, and a couple weeks ago on my walk I happened to see this rather large bull moose not that far away. And I stood there watching him for a while, 30 or 40 feet away, and he didn't seem to be bothered too much by me. As it turns out, the next 3 or 4 days I went for a walk, I spotted him every time. It was obvious he wasn't going too far away. And one day I followed him for an hour. He just kept walking in front of me slowly, keeping 40, 50 feet away, and I followed him for an hour.
The moose.
The moose.
It's about the moose. Don became increasingly obsessed with this moose. I could put up with it for a little while, but then it did get out of hand somewhat. One day he was gone at least 2 hours, if not longer, and he had been there already earlier in the day, and he came back and he told me some things, and he decided he was going to go again. You know, I thought, okay, he'll be back in half an hour. He was gone for a very long time, and it was starting to get a little dim outside, and I was getting quite concerned that something might have happened to him. I thought I had visions of him tripping and breaking his leg or something, or being trampled by the moose, and I would have no idea where to go find him. He didn't have a phone with him, and I was getting increasingly upset with him.
So this went on for 4 days, I believe. Finally I spotted him again, standing just eating in the bush, and I decided to try and get close to him that day. I had a few carrots and a few beets from last year's garden in my pocket. He allowed me to walk within 8 feet of him, and there was like a 4-inch poplar there where I felt kind of safe, so I just stood right behind it looking at him. And there we both stood. He never moved 1 foot for an hour. We both just stood there looking at each other, and I was talking to him all the time. As things proceeded, I tried to throw him a carrot or a beet, but he didn't seem interested in it. Every once in a while, he would just stop looking at me and nibble on some balsam needles. So, seeing he was interested only in eating balsam, I decided to grab a few branches myself, and I found a stick about 5 feet long, and stuck the balsam branch on the end of it, and reached out to him. I had to come out from behind my tree, so I was with about 6 feet from him now, reached a branch out to him, and sure enough, he started eating the balsam. After doing that 4 or 5 times, I got real brave and took a balsam branch about a foot long and walked up to him and actually held it out for him, and believe it or not, he started eating it. And at that point I decided, I had a big leather mitt on, I decided I was going to pet him, sure enough, he let me pet him, except one time I pet a little too long, and I don't know what happened, but he just shook his head, and he was letting me know that was close enough. I still wanted to see if he was interested in carrots, so I noticed there was one that had fallen right down by his front foot, and this is when I did something probably stupid, and I knelt down to pick up this carrot, and I don't know, somehow I spooked him. I don't know if I reminded him of a wolf or something down on all fours, but he kind of got startled and jumped, and he stepped right over me. Actually, one of his hoofs, his legs bumped me and knocked me over, and I kind of crawled down. I said, "Don't step on me." I just sort of wanted to do it quickly. I went down like that, and just as I got the carrot, I noticed he was moving, and I said, "Don't step on me." And he just gingerly stepped right over. His legs are huge. He's tall. He just gingerly stepped over me, and right there, like close by, and just stayed there. At that point, I decided I better go to the house and borrow my wife's phone so I could take a picture of this monster, because nobody's going to believe me. When I got back to the spot where he had been, he was close by, about 10 feet from where we had been, and he was laying down, bedded down for the night already. There he was, and he let me walk within 6 feet of him, and I snapped the picture. So the next day I went out again looking for him as usual. I knew where he had bedded down, so I headed to that spot. It was easy to follow his tracks, and he walked out to our main road and then just down what we call the dam road that heads out to Pache Road. And so I followed his tracks, and lo and behold, there he was, laying just 20 feet off the road, dead. I have no idea why he died, but I went online to check out this brain disease I had heard of that comes from deer ticks, and sure enough, a couple of the symptoms I found very interesting. One of them is that when they get lethargic, they just don't have much energy, they're lazy, and he was lazy for 4 days. And the other one is that they lose their fear of man, and they lose their fear of dying. They lose their fear of mortality.
All I can say is he was a man obsessed. And I guess the moose finally ended the story. I mean, I saw the moose too, but I mean, I didn't get obsessed with this moose. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. We have a moose hanging around the property, and I was always glad to catch a sighting, and I got quite close once too, but I didn't get obsessed. I wouldn't go chasing him through the bush for 2 hours.
This moose definitely had all those symptoms, but I was just happy that he came my way the last week of his life, and I shared every day with him, and it was a great experience. Cool.